there. So, I am Elizabeth. I am so excited to talk to you guys about this. This will be my first live video on my Facebook page. So, um, I want to do it this way because I want to be able to talk to you and I want to see what you think about what we're saying and I want to see what you need. Um, so, who I am talking to are moms of a new baby in the first year. And so since we're talking about SIDS today and the helping to lower the incidence and help to keep them safe, it's going to be moms of new babies. So either you're pregnant or you're about to have a baby and you keep hearing about the the dangers of SIDS and put your baby on the back and you're like, "Well, could I do anything else?" So I wanted to start these conversations and let you guys have an ability to write in your questions and let's talk about it. So, I am a pediatric physical therapist and I have been for 15 years. And in those years, I've worked in many different settings, and that includes outpatient clinics and hospital and home health and schools. And so prior to that, I was a teacher, just to give you a little bit about me. But the reason that I want to talk about SIDS is that being a physical therapist, I see the children in that first year a lot of times, and sometimes even later. Okay, so they're either in the middle of the so called worry danger area. Um, and I've found out how afraid the parents are. And in my experience, what I've seen is there are a lot of babies who will have weakness and they will have maybe something neurological or something just going on that no one has seen yet. No one has diagnosed yet. No thoughts are really there that something's wrong. Um, because they're so young, because it's so early. And so when you have a baby that is 1 week, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, they're not up and running and jumping, right? They're not doing that much stuff. And so for especially a new parent, but even a second or third parent, because I have two, and each one is completely different. So it doesn't. You don't have to be brand new to have these questions, certainly. So I think what happens is no one really notices that something's going on, and so those babies would actually be at a higher risk for SIDS due to whatever there is going on, causing the weakness. Um, a lot of times it has to do with their breathing and come from the central nervous system. And so I do not have the research written down where I'm going to quote you today, but that is something that I've read and that I can attach to this video in the comments, definitely. This was just a conversation. Um, but if that is something that you are thinking that you would like, please let me know, and we can talk in more detail about that. Uh, so there, sorry about that. Uh, so there are some things that I feel um, from reading the research and from my experiences that we can do as moms, and even the nannies, au pair, whoever is with the babies most of the time, that can prevent these issues from happening. So I'm going to talk about the part from the research first. Um, One of the obvious ones that everyone talks about is the status of the bed and putting the baby on their back when they're going to go to sleep unsupervised, or at any time if you're going to put them down. Okay. I'm not going to go into the personal, each person in their own environment, how you feel about the back to sleep program. That that is kind of a known fact that that's what we need to do. Um, so after that, one thing that can cause an increase incidence or increased, risk of SIDS is smoking, either during pregnancy or even after, when the baby's already born. The reason is that it can affect their brain development and growth in utero and even after. And so that's just something. I'm not an expert on quitting smoking. I am an expert in babies and movement and what is best for their brain and body development. So, breathing in the carcinogens and things that are in cigarettes can affect. We know that it can affect the way that they're going to grow in utero and how their brain develops. So this can cause an increased risk for them not being developed as much or as well as they should be when they're 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Okay, and on. It can also cause them to be born prematurely, which in that case is another factor for being a little bit higher risk for SIDS. If your neurological system is not developed yet, you're born a little early. You have to be coddled a little bit longer. You have to be treated as if you're still, in utero as much as possible. Um, so the second thing that I actually recently learned is that breastfeeding can decrease the risk of SIDS. And this is not the forum for me to tell you my opinions. It's not that at all. I want to be here to support you and to give you all the things that you can do and not feel helpless. Because I, as a mom, felt helpless when I heard about SIDS, and when the way it's presented is like there's this big scary thing that can happen to your baby and they cannot wake up when they're sleeping, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. You just have to pay attention and you have to watch them all the time, and you have to put them on their back and take the blankets out of the bed so they can't suffocate. So, as a mom, that's terrifying because you just went through this huge 9 months, right? Ish. You go through the birth, you go through all of this stuff, and then it's like, oh, by the way, they could not wake up. And so it's terrifying. So my goal here is to give you some things instead of, oh gosh, let me cross my fingers and not get any sleep. Give you some things that you can do. Okay, so one recap is back to sleep. We can talk about swaddling in another live. I would love to talk about that. Get your opinions. See if you guys worry about swaddling, or if that's something you try it. If it doesn't work, you give up on it. How you feel, and I can give you some tips on it as well. Um, Second is the crib, no blankets and stuffed animals, and even the mobile that we attach on the top. You want to make sure that it. I don't even use them really early, just in case, right? They fall. Um, the other thing of the wires to the monitor, forgot to mention that. If they're too close, I mean, a few weeks old, they're not going to do that, but it's something that you can kind of forget about, the wires to the monitor if they can reach those. Um, then there is smoking during pregnancy and in early months when they're developing. Uh, Even, being around people that are smoking. If you have family members that are smoking, the particles can be ingested and breathed in by the infants. And the other thing is breastfeeding. And they say it's just increases their cognitive, sorry, I'm going to say not cognitive at this point, but their brain function, the development, the connections that the brain is growing um, every second that they're alive and in utero. Um, so we can talk more about that topic. I can do some more research and see what I read, it didn't give super good reasons of this is why breastfeeding decreases the incidence of SIDS, but it was clear that it does, and it said by 50%. So I thought that was huge enough for us to talk about. Um, so now into an area of my expertise even more is the strengthening part. And so the other thing you could do to help decrease this incidence is giving baby practice on their tummy from immediate from first day. You know they talk about kangaroo care in the hospital and skin to skin, and you can start that immediately where they're laying on you on their stomach. And I think a lot of us started at the beginning. It's almost second nature. That's how the baby's laying. And then I think when it becomes maybe tummy time, get a little bit nervous about what's the best way to do it and what if they don't like it and that kind of stuff. And I definitely plan on doing another live just on that. And I am going to use a special doll that I have, and we can go through some of the ways to facilitate them hanging out on their stomach and why it's so important. But today the focus is on preventing SIDS, and so when the baby is on spends time on their stomach, they get practice lifting their little head up and down and being able to clear their airway. Okay, so they can lift it up and turn it to one side, and then they should be able to lift it up and turn it to the other side. Um, there are some little strategies to work on that to make them stronger if you're seeing that they have difficulty with that, especially if you have a preemie. Reach out to me if you're putting your baby on their tummy and you're like, okay, she said I should practice this, and it looks like they're not clearing their head and it's making you nervous. Um, send me some questions, and we can go in more detail next week on the next live. So if you do see this, I'd appreciate you letting me know what topics you want covered besides the ones that I've already mentioned. So um, a little bit more on tummy time. So when your baby is in between feedings, um, and in between when you're going to swaddle them and put them down is when you can get a little bit of tummy time. It'll be short in the beginning, and then it'll gradually that space in between eating and sleeping will get a little longer, a little longer. And those are the times when you should almost all of that time be doing the tummy time. Um, I'm not going to say don't put them in anything else, but if you think of it as I'm going to do that all the time, then the other stuff will kind of come. The other options of where to put them. So when we were first home from the hospital with both of mine, they're 4.5 years apart. So I had to go. Wait, what did I do again? Um, my son was the second one, so he was both of them. We did this. We would sleep. He would sleep on the sofa on my chest, and so I would wind up laying down, just kind of adjusting my position to where I was laying down too, propped on a pillow, and he was sleeping on my chest. Um, so that was on his tummy. He was comfortable there. So then when he was a little more awake, we would have the play yard on the floor, and I would put him on his tummy there as long as I was in eyesight of him, and making sure that while he was sleeping or awake, that his head, he would lift it up and turn it and put it to the other side. do that as much as possible. As much as possible. If you have reflux issues with your baby, we could talk about that too. It's another kind of discussion, but there are ways to do tummy time at an angle. With my daughter, she had zero issues. I could put her to any position. My son came and he had a little bit of, it wasn't diagnosed reflux, but I kind of knew what was going on. And as soon as he would finish eating, I couldn't lay him down on his back at his crib. So he would be transferred, if I was pumping, he would be transferred to my husband's chest, who he would lay up on a couple pillows, and my son would go uh, on his tummy, which is called prone, on my husband's chest for about 30 minutes, and until I was finished pumping and doing whatever. If I was not, like it was a little later, he would just lay on me, and then I would swaddle him and put him in his bassinet. Um, and later on in the bed, and the same thing until there was a clear burp, until there was a clear, you could tell the food staying down, and he's perfectly fine. They're not gassy, that kind of stuff. So that's one way. If you do have the reflux issues, and you're thinking, how do I just put him down on his stomach? Okay, it's better after it's been digested, after or before sleep. Just depends on how your schedule's working out. Um, yeah. Anyway, so I think how else to describe it to you. Um, when they're on their stomach, this is one, have their arms up here in this position and their head to one side. And a lot of times I would pick up my son's head and move it a little more. He had the tendency to put his mouth to where it was on the surface and he could breathe out of his nose, but it was so small that I was staring at it and I was like, is that a hole? Is he breathing? Is he not breathing? So I'd pick up his little head and turn it so that when I could see everything was clear, then I was like, oh, okay, he's fine now. Anyway, you're not alone in your, freaking outness. Even though I knew all this stuff, you still want to do it right. That's normal. So let me think. Hands here, then the neck can move more freely. If their arms are stuck back here, it shifts their center of gravity forward, and there's going to be more pressure on their head. So try it yourself. If you lay if you lay down and you have your arms here, it kind of sends your weight a tiny bit back onto the pelvis, onto the hips. If your arms are back here, it kind of is going to send you a little more forward with a lot of weight right here. So it makes their head a little heavier. Um, arms here, here, however they like it, but up here is better. Uh, if you find that they're not tolerating it, first of all, you can write me and see, well, maybe there's some little thing going on. We could just fix a position. One thing you can try is a little bit of pressure on their bottom, a little bit down. Okay, especially if they're early, if they're preemies, sometimes they don't have that whole coordination thing down. Um, that's something as they grow, you could do that as well as they kind of get an opinion about tummy time. Um, we can work on that where you give them a little bit of assistance, and that's how they start to get their head up and strengthen those muscles. If you're seeing the head coming up and clearing by itself, really strong neck, hands here, you're doing great. They're doing really, really well, and they're probably going to roll. The rolling will come next. So that is, I could recap my tips, and I would love to hear if this helps you, if these are things that you're worrying about, and that this helps as explanations. Is so we have the back to sleep, we have the no blankets and stuffed animals, and the mobiles, and the wires to the cameras, and or sound machine, whichever we have. And we have the smoking issue and what that does to their development, even if it is a family member. You might have to be that annoying mom who says, sorry, I really don't want you to hold my newborn because you've been smoking. It's all in their hair, it's on their clothes. It's just that you might have to be that annoying person that says, "Sorry, look, he's over here. He's so cute, right?" Then there's breastfeeding, 50% decrease in risk of SIDS. I will look that up and get that article where I read that because that was super interesting. And then you have working on the strengthening of in that position of tummy time and just using it as from the beginning as a normal position so they're not questioning it later like, oh, why are you doing this to me? Have it from the beginning so it's normal, it's expected. Okay, that is all the hopefully amazing information that I have for you today. I would love to hear from you if you're watching this replay or live in the comments. And in my group, there's a couple different places you can interact. So I hope to see you there. And also, don't forget to grab the free training that I have in the group that are 5 mistakes that new moms make that affect babies' development, even if you've read all the books. So that one's free. And then I also have a link to my ebook that I wrote that goes through birth to 5. It's just everything that you might want to know. There's a lot of information in there. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week.